Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along to the outback here in the UK. I'm out in the forest again. There is a bit of wind today, so hopefully you can't hear it too much. I'm coming into the trees to sort of see if the trees will diffuse some of the wind to some of the noise from the wind. So hopefully it works out for us. Welcome along to my walk and talk through the forest, through the wonderland near my home. I'm very fortunate to live here. If it's your first time here, welcome. Great to have you along. If you're a returning subscriber, equally, if not more so, wonderful to have you here. I am humbled and honoured to have so many people joining me for these walks and talks about subjects that we need to discuss in our society. That's the easiest way I can put it. And it is a series of discussions that I've done over the past 5 or 6 months that I've been doing this now. And all the subjects are interlinked. I believe they are. And today is no different. Today we're going to be following directly on from the last conversation that we had. And today's topic of conversation is cultural appropriation. Now, if you don't know what that is, I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I got the explanation right before I did this. So, cultural appropriation is the adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. So basically you're adopting some elements of a culture into your culture. But it becomes controversial when members of a dominant culture, white people, appropriate from minority cultures. Okay, so I'll give you an example before we really sort of get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. So imagine you have a white person wearing a Native American headdress. Cultural appropriation. Okay, so we're told by some members in our society, I'll just show you the shirt before we get started, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. Now remember that, because sharing this type of information can only get you in trouble with those around you, because people like to be culturally, we want to make sure that we are homogenized and no one's offended by anything we say, as per the last video. So there's cultural appropriation. So what it says is that a dominant culture, usually pointed at white people because we're evil. You and me are evil. Apparently, it's not the governments that control us that are evil. It's the you and me. Okay. When we appropriate elements of a culture into our own. Now, I want to tackle this head on because while I understand, I'm sympathetic to other cultures and their traditions and their belief systems. I'll just turn around here so I can try and get the wind out. Their traditions and their belief systems. We have to understand that when you have people from other cultures bringing their traditions and their culture, and they're intermingling with our culture, so I'm from Australia, obviously. So we have a different way of living in Australia than we do perhaps here in the UK. Different traditions, different cultural biases, different ways that we live and different ways that we interact with each other. In Australia we generally take the piss a little bit, and that's part of our culture. That's what we do. Here in the UK it's a bit more reserved. But cultural appropriation, when you have, there was an instance last year or the year before, I think, where there was a young lady in America who wanted to go to her high school ball or formal or prom or whatever you call it, wearing a Chinese style dress, and she was accused and told she wasn't allowed to wear it because that was cultural appropriation, because she was wanting to wear a dress that she really liked. She was told it was a cultural appropriation. It was inappropriate for her to do so. Now, I can understand, like I say, I can understand, people being offended by that. But, I think it's a compliment, because you like the style of someone else's culture. You like their style of dressing. Maybe you like their style of food, which is appropriate to me because I'm a chef, or my job is a chef. You want to take on the part of that culture. Not for mocking purposes, although there are some people that are going to do things to mock people, like when they dress up in blackface. That's that's a different thing altogether. But when you're borrowing from someone's culture because you like they like how they dress, or they like, you like something about their culture. Is that an insult, or is it more a compliment? I think it's a compliment personally, but then again, I'm white, so I'm not allowed to have an opinion. Now, cultural appropriation, if we take it, if we draw it out to its conclusion, if we take it and step it out as far as we can, let's go to the world of sports, for instance. Okay, so we have the game of golf, appropriate for here in the UK. I've been playing golf all my life, love the game. It was invented in Scotland. Okay, people with red hair and white skin, and we had a champion golf player by the name of Tiger Woods, who, I don't know whether you realise or not, but he's not white and he's not Scottish. So should we take away all of Tiger Woods' medals and his all of his winnings because he culturally appropriated a sport from another country that was played by white people? Is that fair? Or doesn't count because he's black, so it's a minority taking on a majority's culture? It's a fair question, don't you think? We could take it a step further, for instance. Who invented football? Not the football, the American kind, but British football, soccer, if you like. Who invented that? We all think English did, right? But it was being played in China beforehand. So all the English people, the white people, who play football, and obviously football, soccer, is one of the biggest sports in the world. It's played all over the world by multitude of cultures. Should we ban everyone else except the Chinese, who was originally played in China? Should we ban everyone else from playing it because it's culturally inappropriate for us to play? Let's take it a step further, shall we? Sailing, ocean sailing. Who invented that? Probably the Polynesians, the French Polynesians, the islanders, the French Polynesian islanders were out sailing and discovering islands a long time, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago perhaps. But then you have a country like Switzerland, for instance, with no ocean. They don't have a beach, they don't have an ocean, but yet they won the America's Cup, a sailing race, an ocean sailing race. Should we take away that trophy from Switzerland because that's culturally inappropriate because the French Polynesians invented sailing? Should we go to food? Food. Now, food. We're all sure about where our food comes from, right? You go to Italy and they're positive about pasta. Italy invented pasta. Of course they did. Except maybe they didn't. You have Christopher Columbus travelled all around the world and brought back many different things to Italy from different cultures, like noodles from China. So should Italians be banned from eating pasta because the Chinese made it? This cultural appropriation is yet another divisive tool that's there as another to divide us even more than we already are. We have so many divisive lines in our culture, all of our cultures, that keep us divided. Men against women, black against white, Asians against it's yet another device to keep us divided rather than bring us together. Why can't this be seen as a compliment to other cultures when we want to take on a part of their culture? We want to dress like Native Americans because some of the ways they dress and their attachment to the land. Shouldn't we want to have more of that in our culture, in our white culture, where it's just all about consumerism? That's what we've been trained to do, is being consumers. Shouldn't we embrace cultures that have different traditions and different ideologies, that we could perhaps adopt some of those traditions and ideologies into the way that we live to make our culture better? Why does it have to be a bad thing? Why is it always seen, all these kind of things like woke culture, everything's bad, white people are bad, we're responsible for all the bad in the world? Is it really the people? Is it really us, the people, that are responsible for all the terrible things? Or is it the governments that are creating these these wars and these conflicts in other parts of the world where we, the average person, has to go and fight it? Now, this cultural appropriation is, I understand, as I say, I understand why people could be offended by it, but I also understand that we should be embracing one another's cultures. Like in London, I used to live in London, and London's billed as the most multicultural city in the world, where you have different, so many people from different cultures around the world, and they're bringing their traditions and culture to London. And it's this intermingling, this melting pot of different ideas and cultures and traditions all in one place. And we're this held up to be the model of the world, that we can bring a bunch of people from different places and different cultures and put them in one place, and their cultures can mix, intermingle, and we can come out with something that maybe benefit us all rather than dividing us. But this cultural appropriation is being injected into the conversation, injected into our culture to say, you can't, as a white person usually, you can't adopt something from another culture because that's cultural appropriation. That's a bad thing. Now, as I say, if we go to sports, look, who invented basketball? It was a white American guy in Massachusetts, I think. I'm not sure of the city. I know it's a white guy. But look at all the professional basketball teams in the US and around the world. I mean, it's predominantly played by black people because they're better at it. But that's the thing. It is, these made up rules that we make up, or we don't, but they're made up by people that is deliberately being injected into the conversation for nefarious purposes, and it's all about division. Now, the reason I do these videos is to have these conversations, and it isn't, I'm not trying to be mean, because there are people who genuinely believe this is a real issue, and who genuinely see this as like one of the biggest crises of humanity, that, because a young girl wants to dress in a Chinese style dress, or because a white guy wants to wear an Indian headdress, it'll look pretty cool, I have to say. We have to have some semblance of rationality in our discussions, in the way that we approach these kind of subjects, because if we lose our rationality, which is clearly what's happening right now with this COVID nonsense, we've lost all rational reasoning, where we can have an open, frank and honest conversations about things, because we don't want to offend people. It's this constant offense. I'm offended. Well, I'm offended by your offense. We have to be understanding, and we have to be sympathetic to people who feel slighted by the slightest things. But at the same time, we can't allow that to divide us on yet another line in these incredibly divisive times. Now, I do this to start conversations. Now, in general, the feedback I get from people, some of it is constructive criticism, and that's what I'm here for. People want to inject into the conversation in the comment section. So if you do feel like making a comment about this, and you are from a minority, and you can give me a case as to why cultural appropriation is a bad thing, then I'm more than willing to hear it. But we need to have these conversations. We need to be able to have them in a way that isn't disrespectful. And I'm not trying to disrespect anybody that has this belief system, but you have to think in terms of all the news that we get is all about white man bad. That we've done everything wrong. And while there are a lot of, people in from my culture, let's put it that way, that have done terrible things, we can look at any culture in the world, anyone. I don't care where you are. Go to Africa, there's been plenty of tribes that have killed other tribes. Same in Native America, same thing. Genocide from one tribe to another. We're each and every single one of us, not each personally, but each and every one of our cultures that we come from has been involved in atrocities in multiple places around the world. Now, obviously, white people are, I wouldn't even say that we're the dominant colour in the world. I mean, really, black and brown, I would think, is most of the people in the world sort of fit into that spectrum rather than white. But obviously with the colonialism and the empires taking over the world, at the moment in the period that we're in, obviously the white, the monarchy and the white empire went and conquered, for all intents and purposes, that word, other cultures. But if we go back far enough, look at The Romans, obviously they were white. Let's go back to the Mongolians. The Mongol Empire. It is over periods of time. There's been changes throughout the world, changes of who is dominant at the time, and right now we could say that white people are the dominant culture. If you come to England, are white people the dominant culture? Well, it is, traditionally, before they brought slaves to this country, which was absolutely disgusting. We can all agree on that. The majority of the people in this country were white. And that's not a bad thing. We maintain our own cultures in our own places, and those cultures can intermingle. But it is this intermingling and trying to find those rules that we can exist together that we need to work on. But having discussions about something so, I think, pointless as cultural appropriation, if someone takes offence, well, they have to examine why they're offended by something as innocuous as someone wearing a Native American headdress. I think they look pretty cool. I don't know whether I've ever worn one. Maybe I was at a party, but who knows? But it seems very innocuous to be starting such a big movement. And there is a big movement, and it always comes back to me that these kind of subjects we would think of as fringe and as a really, really small percentage of the population that has these kind of viewpoints, but they're thrust into the media, into the limelight, to have such a huge voice, such a huge impact on our society, when it's such a minority of people that believe this stuff. Now, all that said, we have to come together, because, as I've said many times before in the past, in other videos, and my belief system is, we, the people, the governed, we don't really have that many problems with each other. Of course, there's going to be disputes over individual things, for multiple reasons. But in general, I don't hate anyone from Russia. I don't hate anyone from China. I generally don't hate. I have a strong dislike for politicians because realistically, do they have our best interests at heart? And time again, they prove themselves to be not acting in our best interest. Let's put it that way. They're acting self-interested scumbags is usually the terminology I use for politicians. And this is where the division starts. And it is deliberate, because divided, we, the governed, divided, we have no power. And it is only recognising that, I was talking with a friend just the other day, it's recognising that if we were to have conversations with each other, regardless of where you're from, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're African, whether you're a Native American, whether you're Australian, we, in general, if we were to sit down and have a conversation, we would see that the majority of how we think, we agree on just about everything. There's going to be small disagreements, and it's small disagreements from, not everyone that is white agrees with the way that I think, and I don't agree with everything that they think. But the majority of how we think and how we want to interact with each other, we all believe the same thing. We all want the same thing, But we're so focused on the things that are different in us, that we're not focused on all the things that are the same, the crossovers of our belief systems. And that's manufactured, it's deliberate. We need to let go of the petty nonsense, and I believe, without trying to upset people and offend people, it is petty. These kind of things are very petty. If you take individual offence to something, then say something to the person that is offending you. It's as simple as that. It's your offence. You have to find some way to deal with it. If it is deliberately offensive, different story. We've discussed that in my last video. But we have to find that we have to look at the similarities that we have. We have to look at the similarities of our belief systems and how we want to live in this world and interact with each other. And if we can do that by having conversations like this one, then we'll move forward. But relying on an authoritarian government to govern and deem what we can say and how we can say it and the way that we can interact with each other is not the way to go. Because we'll end up under a communist state and not being able to interact with anybody. No one wants that. So that's my rant for the day. I have my next video is going to be something that is going to be I think it's going to be enlightening for a few people. I did a video before about new technology, new electricity generation technology that came out. This new one I'm going to be doing is going to really make your eyes pop. So that will be my next video. I'll be doing that probably tomorrow if the weather holds out. It is a bit overcast here today, but I am wearing a t-shirt, so it's not that bad. So join me, come back again, join me. I hope you like what I did today. Join me tomorrow. I swear to you, this is going to make your eyes pop. The information is pretty incredible. I'm going to have to do some more reading on it now because it is quite an intense subject for me to get into, and I'm going to have a dictionary and a thesaurus next to me, I would think, to understand some of the words I'm getting into. But join me for tomorrow's video, because I swear to you, this one is really going to make your eyes pop and really make you question as to why we are living in the society where we are. We're relying on a oil-based economy. It's going to be interesting. All right, enjoy your day. Get out there, be good to each other, be good to yourself, get some fresh air, some good food, look after yourselves, load up with a good energy, deep breathe, and enjoy yourselves. Look after each other, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Take care. Bye.